Khamzat Chimaev is one of the UFC's most daring and successful weight class experiments. His career started off with a rapid change between welterweight and middleweight from one weekend to the next. However, Chimaev missed weight at UFC 279 in his biggest PPV event to date, and it's called his ability to consistently cut down to 175 pounds into question. So why not move up to a more comfortable 185 pounds? Starting with, why did Chimaev miss weight? UFC veteran Shael Sonnen often says that fighters only have two parts to their job: stay in shape and make weight. Failure to do so is unprofessional, and Chimaev came in over 8 pounds heavy. In the MMA world, that's as bad as showing up drunk. While Chimaev acts like a lunatic for the camera's sake at times, he's a professional athlete who has never lost a bout in freestyle wrestling or MMA and never missed weight. This, when paired with the questionable matchup between retiring veteran and young phenom, raised a few eyebrows at Chimaev's true intentions. There's a portion of the community that feels Chimaev came in heavy on purpose. Michael Chiesa, MMA veteran, and Hezbollah claim to have spotted him at a restaurant a night before the weigh-in, eating and drinking sparkling water for hours. Not to mention the freak cancellation of the press conference when Chimaev and Holland had an altercation backstage, selling the fight even before Chimaev missed weight. So did the UFC give Boers the green light to miss weight? Was it a ploy to switch up the card when they realized Diaz versus Chimaev wasn't going down well with the public? We'll just say this: stranger things have happened in this sport. Moreover, the cheeky chatter on Chimaev's Twitter. Boers was never shy in the mix or online, and is always involved in some kind of drama on social media platforms like Twitter. This week, he uploaded a picture of himself with the short statement 185. This isn't a surprise, considering the Chechen made his debut in the UFC at 185 pounds against John Phillips, an opponent he dispatched via rear naked choke in around a minute. A little over a month later, he returned to what many consider his natural weight class, from domination at welterweight to dismantle a tougher opponent in Gerald Meerschaert in 17 seconds. This ability to fight anyone, anywhere, at any time, and still dominate made Chimaev a company and crowd favorite. Missing weight changed that though, and Dana White was upset enough to end his experiment and have Boers move up to 185 pounds. It's a problem that he missed weight, said White at the post-fight press conference, and Chimaev's decision to move up could be influenced by company pressure. Secondly, Khamzat's medical issues before UFC 279. Chimaev is all smiles and jokes now, and even reacted to his missed weight cut with nonchalance. But Boers had to be stopped from pushing himself any further by medical professionals. UFC President Dana White reported that he was locking up and cramping and looked very lean early on in his weight cut. All of this points toward an ineffective training camp and bad weight management. A decade ago, no one would have batted an eye at a fighter cramping during a weight cut. The sport has evolved though, and doctors recommended Khamzat drop out. He had to listen because he was getting sicker. This isn't the first time Khamzat's health has affected his UFC career. The Russian fighter had a very deadly bout with COVID-19 early in his career that saw him out of action for almost a year. He even retired, thinking he could never get back to his prime. He came back in spectacular fashion though, but these are complex health problems that may not affect his athletic ability, but may call for his constant switching between weight classes to cease, or he may need to stop cutting so much weight. Additionally, Boers may just be too big for 175. Boers has plowed through almost everyone he's been put up against up until now, be it middleweight or welterweight. Even so, his performances at 175 demand more praise because A, he's faced tougher competition, and B, he's done better against them. Gilbert is the highest level of competition anyone can face in the world, a man who looks huge for 175 himself now, and Gilbert pulled one over him. Other than that, his wrestling domination of Leach, his one-punch knockout power, and his reach height advantage all point towards someone who cuts a lot of weight to be extra big in a smaller weight class. This isn't a dig towards Chimaev. He's not breaking any rules, and most fighters cut some weight. But it is bad for you if you push too far, and it can become your worst enemy once you start facing higher-ranked opponents. Boers showed tendencies to slow down against Burns, and that was just 3 rounds. Khamzat's nasty bout with COVID-19 during lockdown further explains his need to be more careful in pushing too hard, so maybe Chimaev just needs to move up. Let's talk about who Chimaev Chimaev may fight at middleweight. Moving up a weight class is probably going to be a longer path to the title than welterweight, where Chimaev was on the cusp of a chance at the belt. But that's not really a problem for the fans, who never mind seeing Chimaev in action, the UFC, who can sell Khamzat on more cards, and for Chimaev, who'll be taking home more cash. If the UFC decides to make Chimaev work his way up the ranking a bit and properly earn his stripes at middleweight before giving him a shot at Israel, he may match him up with Nasruddin Imavov, the Russian fighting out of France many have looked over in the division. The ranked fighter is on a 3-fight win streak and has earned the right to headline a card. He represents a Russian versus Russian matchup that the UFC could really sell and give Khamzat a real test at middleweight. Similarly, he could fight Kelvin Gastelum. The veteran may be on a 4 out of 5 losing stint and has fallen from grace since his legendary 5-rounder against Israel. He's still tough as a rock. He's only lost to the very best in the sport and has often gone the distance with them. He has star power in the division, and the fans see him as a solid gatekeeper. It's a winnable matchup for Khamzat while still being a solid challenge. If the UFC made that matchup, we don't imagine a lot of people would complain. Moving on, Boers could be thrown into title contention. Nobody could argue that Khamzat has earned a title shot after his stellar performances, but he's in a unique position to negotiate it in 2 weight classes. The more obvious choice is 175, where he beat a highly ranked opponent in Gilbert Burns, but he dominated contenders in 185 too. If the champion is out of commission for a few months after the fight in November when Adesanya fights Pereira, Khamzat could be put up against division boogeyman Robert Whittaker. Bobby Knuckles has lost to Adesanya twice now, but has only gotten better since he lost the title, outclassing the likes of Gastelum and Vettori in his recent outings. However, if Adesanya beats Pereira, successfully avenging one of his few losses in combat sports, he'll suddenly run out of competition in his division. Having beaten all the major names at 175, some of them twice, Izzy might need some fresh blood and a new challenge in Chimaev. Stylistically, it's a great matchup since Adesanya has shown vulnerability to wrestling in past fights, like his loss to Jan Blachowicz, and Boers is an unbeaten freestyle wrestler. His size also diminishes Adesanya's usual height and reach advantage over his opponents, limiting his strike options. However, if Alex Pereira wins the belt, Khamzat might have to wait in line until the longtime champ exercises his rematch rights. Finally, the beef between Paulo Costa and Khamzat. Ever since Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev had an altercation at UFC PI in Vegas, Costa has been calling for a fight on all of his social media platforms. The two were training when Paulo was seen on video calling Khamzat over and yelling at him that he wants to fight him and that he'd do it right there. Things seemed to get heated before bystanders separated the two, and Costa kept the heat up on his YouTube channel where he admonished Boers for being a gourmet fake gangster who's only tough in front of the cameras. In response, Chimaev has been calm and cool, avoiding any commitments with Paulo in case Adesanya opens up after UFC 281. If we're being honest though, it's a great fight. Paulo is a true middleweight, arguably bigger, and has power that Chimaev hasn't felt in the octagon before this. His black belt in jiu-jitsu diminishes the ground threat to some degree, and we have to think Paulo is feeling better after finally bouncing back from his losing stint by beating former champ Luke Rockhold. Who do you think Khamzat will face in the octagon next, and in which weight class? Let us know in the comments how you think it'll go. If you enjoyed this video and want regular updates just like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.